Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Ahead podcast, where our focus is on finding ways for you to pay for college and stay out of debt. This is the first episode, and there are many topics to cover, from paying for college to choosing a college major, as well as what to do after college. Naturally, we can't cover all of those in one episode, so we'll be going over those topics over the life of the podcast, as well as doing interviews, looking into questions from our listeners, and going on with topics that are addressing education now, as well as in the future. My name is Ronaldo Stevens, and I will be your host on this journey of figuring out how to pay for college. The reason that I started this podcast is because I once was a college student, and I had no idea how I was going to pay for my college. I ended up taking out way too many loans and overpaying on my tuition and all sorts of pitfalls that I'm hoping to help others avoid. So stay tuned and we'll figure out how to get through all of those traps and pitfalls that usually befall students entering into college. Now, before we move further, let's start to talk about the problem with American education. I would say, Houston, we have a problem, but it's not just Houston. It happens in Atlanta, New York, Cheyenne, Wyoming, all over the country, where millions of students are graduating high school every year and heading off to college with no expectations or knowledge except for what is talked about in music and movies. The problem is extending into high schools and junior highs, where the programs focus on pushing students through instead of them to be stronger. A's are given for completing the bare minimum, and entering college is expected to be similar to high school. It's not. If you've picked up this podcast and started tuning in, one thing we need to get clear is that college is not high school. You have a lot more freedom, yes, but many turn this into the freedom to fail or the freedom to go into debt. The freedom to feign ignorance when asked about a career path or their future. But not for you, not for your children, not after listening in and making the decision to make better decisions. My goal with you listening to this is to turn you from an area of unknown incompetence, where you don't even know what you don't know, to known competence when it comes to seeing the path that you're heading down. The Bible says, "My people perish for lack of vision." Let's make sure that your vision and truth align. And to do that, we have to clear the lens. So let's address some of those problems in our country when it comes to higher education. First, we have the prestige problem. How many college movies have you watched about studying? I already know the number is 0. And if it isn't, you can still count them on one hand. Movies about college financing that don't end up with some wacky shenanigans that aren't real, even less. Can you have a -0? Now, how many movies have you seen about college sports, or fraternities, or the steamy affair with the hot professor who wants a young lover? I kid, but this hyper-reality has made it into our daily lives. Most of our kids and students aren't thinking about costs and academics when choosing a college. They're thinking about everything else. And at a time when every major college in the U.S. offers about every major and minor that each other college offers, how do you decide which one to go to? This brings us to the prestige problem. You see, the prestige problem stems from the fact that most universities aim to pull students in on many non-academic statuses. Sports and football teams being the main one, but also campus facilities, such as swimming pools and workout centers. A school's proximity to famous landmark also make many bright-eyed fall prey to the sirens of certain cities or schools. Not to mention the clubs and other extracurriculars that may be available. Take the University of Oklahoma, for example.
It is an excellent academic school with many degree programs that have a full and thorough curriculum, but the highest paid position? The head football coach. The reason? The football program brings prestige and athletic dollars to many institutions, turning them into businesses. 60,000 seats at $75 average price over 7 home games? You can do the math.
Even before attending college is on the mind, children around the country are flooded with images of raving fans having a good time cheering for a school. Elementary school students will have already favored a team in the local college rivalry. And of course, most children will choose to cheer for the school that their parents are cheering for. And many parents will cheer for a school regardless of their attendance to them or not. By grabbing fans, these schools are ensuring that they'll have future attendees that aren't concerned about academics or cost, but are only concerned with if they can attend the school that they've cheered for most of their lives.
And this problem now extends to our country's high schools, where students are sometimes opting for the easy courses instead of challenging themselves so they can focus on athletics and increase their GPA with those easy classes, and they'll look better for the schools that have sports programs, whether the students are going to play in college or not. This brings us to the testing problem. Of course, there are many aspects of high school that we could comment about, but that's not what this show is about. The main thing that I want to complain about, and the main thing that I think a lot of people have a problem with, is the standardized tests that have become such a staple to the education system that test-taking skills and not practical application have become the focus of many curriculums. Funnily enough, senators and teachers all over the country seem to complain about the overabundance of standardized testing, but don't seem to do anything to lessen the load. Strange observation. With high school, everybody does have an opinion, mainly because everybody experienced it in their own way. The funny thing about personal experiences is they're personal. They don't necessarily translate to a universal means of addressing a problem. Everybody from all walks of life would have a very strong opinion or belief about what high school is like, what it's supposed to be like, what's wrong with it, and how to improve it. This is actually one of the reasons we're starting to see the Frankenstein network of metrics and standardized testing being depended on so strongly in the school system. Metrics aren't bad. After all, what gets measured can be improved. The problem is, are we measuring the right thing? Is it grades? Is it reading proficiency? SAT, ACT scores? FCAT, FSAT, or whatever they're calling it nowadays? Number of assignments that are actually turned in on time? All of these are definitely important, but in the desire to reach a higher standard, we treat our classrooms like factories that turn people into upstanding Model Ts, ready to fit into the college cone and take their place among the workforce right after leaving the assembly line. Education has never been and will never be so simple as finding a one-size-fits-all solution. Aside from every student being different, each teacher has unique experiences, opinions, and styles that can impact the student's success rate. Even testing itself can cause undue stress and anxiety that doesn't reflect their daily work or study habits, which is one of the problems with using a once or twice a year test to measure a student's overall ability. One thing to remember in all this is that higher education is a business. Sure, you have education that has big money. Large universities, as the University of Central Florida, my alma mater, have a budget of over $2 billion. And I imagine that the bigger and older schools have even bigger budgets. For-profit colleges, while they may have a smaller budget, will still be aggressive in getting students to attend their schools because of the business model. Besides the problem of competing for your pocketbook, it could also be said that whenever that much money is tied into any industry, change is slow to come. Whenever companies are making money with their current model, they don't seek innovation as aggressively and they look to minimize disruption. Blockbuster is a fine example of this. In the early 2000s, Blockbuster had the opportunity to join Netflix in a joint venture and head the digital description and DVD by mail parts of the rental industry. However, Blockbuster declined because they had too much money coming in from their current model. Anyone alive in the 90s to the early 2000s remember how much of a staple Blockbuster was in any city or town. Now there's only one left in the entire country. The problem with education is that it's very difficult to innovate in a field that's hard to measure in the first place. When most economists think of innovation, they unfortunately try to make efficiency the top priority. But that doesn't work in education. First of all, big colleges have already made attempts to maximize class sizes, but there is a correlation between large class sizes and student dissatisfaction. Also, the smaller the class, the easier it is to learn the subject. It also helps turn the classroom into a community of problem solving. It's easier and more interesting to learn with peers, many colleges have found out. Online education has made leaps and bounds in the past 2 decades, but it still doesn't replace the classroom experience. And as far as efficiency, it means professors spend more time answering emails and addressing student concerns about the online methods than actually teaching. The online model adds convenience for those with the busy schedules, but does little to minimize costs for universities. While it does eliminate brick and mortar needs, you still need a place to record and a server to host all of these online courses. Last problem with the education economy is one that many industries face, and that it is supported by government funds. This isn't a bad thing, as many first world countries have free higher education for most of their qualifying students. Furthermore, there have been more talks in the United States about creating more tuition-free programs so that students can more easily get the training they need in an ever-evolving economy. The problem is that politically, we don't have national resolve one way or the other to make college either completely free or to get government support for college altogether. As such, funding is always in flux, which makes tuition always rise when there is threat of state or federal funding running out. You'll also notice that once tuition goes up, it rarely comes down, regardless of increased student enrollment or increased government support. The current model of student payments combined with government loans ensures that the most popular colleges and universities will continue to have income, while some of the smaller, less popular colleges will start having financial problems. Moving on to the job versus career versus vocation problem. Most parents have high hopes for their children. They want to see them succeed, to be happy, and possibly become the owner of a billion-dollar corporation while finding a cure for cancer during their campaign for president. To ask parents to be realistic is not what we're here for, though you can save you and your child a lot of stress by playing up their strengths and not preying up your hopes. This podcast and this discussion is about finding and making a plan. Parents, in order to have a plan, you have to know what your child wants to study and do for a living. You have to know their interest, as well as their drive for study and the type of environments that they thrive in. For parents, this gets harder to see as your life drifts ever slowly apart to where you're not even sure if you can name all of your child's close friends. It's even more difficult because many students aren't even sure of all their interests or desires in life. And that's okay. Life changes along with desires and interests, but you can only make a decision based on who you are now and who you want to be after the college experience. The where is what students usually focus on, but with over 6,000 degree-granting institutions in the U.S., that would be like focusing on which grocery store to go without thinking of a shopping list or budget. The problem when we start talking about after college is we don't think clearly about a job versus a career versus a vocation versus what the person wants to do. These are not all the same thing. Job, in its simplest definition, is something that you do to earn money. This is the most basic thing that we come across. There would be the person working at a fast food restaurant or retail, and they're not trying to get to manager, they're not trying to really run the company, but they are trying to earn money. Now, some of these people do become managers, but it is not what they wanted to do with their life necessarily. A career is something more long-term. Here we're thinking of somebody that stays in the job or with the company or in that position for several years and keeps improving themselves and learning and doing better. A vocation is very similar, but usually this person doesn't stay with a company. They're staying with a job and they are going from business to business, are either running their own business with a certain skill set. And the last one, I would say, is the Maslow's hierarchy of self-realization. This is the ultimate what I've been put here on this earth to do, which is so far down the line, we don't even have to worry about it. I bring up all these issues in this first episode because the decision to get a degree and go to college or university is one of the biggest financial and personal decisions you or your child will make in life. The decision of where to go and how to pay for it is an emotional roller coaster that has caused some people, family members, and relationships to burn out. To go into this decision without a plan or without foreknowledge of what you're getting into would be folly. I'm hoping that this podcast will be a guide keeping the ship of your life from sinking on the rock-covered shores of poor choices. It's okay to change your mind and reevaluate your desires as you go through life. Remember, we as people can only make decisions based on our current situation and knowledge, while looking to be the person we want to be. Is this podcast for the student or for the parent? Yes. It's for both, really. And so with that, as we close out this episode, I'm going to leave you with some action steps, some things that you should do in order to get started on your college journey if you haven't already. For students, if you're in high school, sit down and talk with your parents about your financial situation and their thoughts on college and future education. Parents, discussing finances can be difficult, but it's important that your student understands the context of lifestyle, income, and expenses before making decisions about their education and therefore their life's work. Students, make a list of your hobbies and interests, even if you don't think they can be careers. Parents, if you haven't already discussed their hobbies, interests, and strengths, do so. Don't try to push them into any specific field or profession. Let them think first. Another task for students, take note of specific tasks that you like to do or don't like to do. For example, can you sit at a computer actually working for a long time, not just scrolling Instagram and TikTok? Or do you have a skill with talking with a lot of different people, even people you've never met before? Lastly, parents, if you already have finances set aside for your child's higher education, make clear what the money is for and what the expectations are for them while they are in college. This may seem like a strict step, but a lot of parents have unspoken ideas about the money that they've set aside for their students. And then when those unspoken rules are not met, parents will get really mad or pull funding. So outline clearly what the expectations are if you're going to pay for your child's education. And with that, we have reached the end of episode 1 of the Thinking Ahead podcast. I look forward to seeing you next time and helping you to pay for college and avoid debt. Take care and God bless.